New York City schools plan to get rid of that rule that shuts down schools when they have 2 unrelated coronavirus cases. Mayor de Blasio says a new plan is coming within days, and this all comes as New York State is relaxing another COVID restriction. So starting tonight, the 11 o'clock curfew is a thing of the past for casinos, movie theaters, bowling alleys, billiard halls, and gyms. But this is important. It's still in place for restaurants and bars.
And in less than 24 hours, New York will ramp up its vaccine rollout again. Starting tomorrow, anyone who is 16 and older can sign up to get the vaccine. And this comes as New York City is expecting a big supply boost next week. Let's get the latest from News 4's Andrew Siff, who's live outside the Javits Center. Andrew?
Right, David. 16 and older essentially means open eligibility. It's the first time New York has reached that point. It is an important milestone on a day when, once again, the state and to a lesser degree the city loosening restrictions. Late night gym hours, extra time at the bowling alley, even midnight movies, all premiering tonight when the COVID curfew lifts.
With the vaccine, we're fighting a good fight and we'll be able to get out there and get back to normal.
But Mayor de Blasio today said reopening continues to be a challenge as COVID rates remain flat and virus variants remain a threat.
I would not want us to go farther than that until we make sure we're on the right track.
I think they need to slow it down, wait until we get to a certain level of herd immunity, and then after that we can reopen.
And yet the mayor today bowed to pressure from parents tired of constant COVID closures at public schools, where something called the 2-case rule mandated sudden shutdowns at hundreds of schools in the past few months. Today, the mayor and his new chancellor promised a new policy.
I know that frequent closures because of the old policy have made many families weary of in-person learning.
The teachers union, which dictated the pace of reopening last fall after protests over inadequate ventilation and testing, said not so fast. A proclamation is not a plan. The city can't change the 2-case rule without Albany's approval. Meanwhile, as vaccine eligibility expands to include 16-year-olds starting tomorrow, I asked the mayor's health team if we will soon reach a tipping point.
Have you put a guesstimate on when that date might be, when it switches to more supply than demand?
I do think that that day will come, and I think most likely is in May.
Just imagine that. A few weeks ago, the city was running out of vaccine and they had to shut down sites on a case-by-case basis. Now the city health team forecasting that next month there may be so much that they'll have to convince people to get vaccinated. And again, 16 and up eligible starting tomorrow. We're live outside the Javits Center. Andrew Siff, News 4 New York.
Those sound like some concrete steps forward. Thank you, Andrew. And new at 4, New Jersey getting ready to expand its vaccine eligibility in a big way. In 2 weeks, anyone who is 16 and older will be able to sign up in New Jersey for their shot. Right now, limited to people 55 and up. News 4's Brian Thompson continue our coverage. He's live in Keyport with what we need to know. Brian.
Yeah, Dave, this move was telegraphed to me a week ago by a high-ranking source in state government, and we reported it then. And now it's coming true. 16 plus in age will be coming in a couple of weeks or so. Now, in opening it up, New Jersey will, of course, join Connecticut and New York, which have or are going to 16 plus already, as you just heard from Andrew. The key factors, of course, more vaccine is available, and nearly 2 million New Jerseyans out of a population of 9 million are already fully vaccinated.
We're also going to make our most aggressive push yet to meet our vaccination goals, and I'm announcing that effective 2 weeks from today, so this is April 19th, all New Jerseyans age 16 and over will be eligible for vaccination. That's about 12 days ahead of our initial target that had been May 1st, but given the trajectory we are on, we believe this is the right time to put our program into higher gear.
The governor also saying that self-quarantining is no longer necessary for domestic travel if you are fully vaccinated, and that means 2 weeks after the last shot. But the international self-quarantine is still in effect for international travel. He also outlined a best-case scenario, the most hopeful he's been in a while, that cases could actually start going down in just a matter of a couple of weeks after they've been rising now for recent weeks. I'll have more on that and what it may or may not mean here in Keyport, which is really struggling right now. in my report coming up at 5 o'clock. Live in Keyport, Brian Thompson, News 4 New York.
All right, Brian, thank you. Looking forward to that report. And also today, Governor Murphy laid out the best case scenario of the pandemic in the coming weeks. Now, these projections take into account vaccinations, spring break travel, holidays, and vaccine efficacy against the variants. While the worst case scenario shows daily cases soaring above 8,000, the best case scenario cuts that number in half.
As I said Wednesday, we have already outperformed our models and crushed the curves twice before. So, folks, let's do it a third and hopefully final time.
Now, all three models, the best, moderate, and worst case scenarios, show COVID cases steady through April 18th and then falling consistently throughout the summer, Dave.
And Governor Lamont usually updates us in this 4 o'clock hour. You see there a live look of his briefing. So we're monitoring it, and then we'll bring you any news that comes out of that in the newscast. But let's take a look at the tri-state. We hit another new milestone in the vaccine rollout. More than 11 million people now have at least one shot of the vaccine. So that's breaking down to 34% of adults in New York, 36% in New Jersey, and again, 38% in Connecticut.